What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another video, another book review, audiobook review. This one is Light of the Jedi. It's Star Wars The High Republic, Light of the Jedi. So this was the first book, the first release in the High Republic initiative, the publishing initiative for Star Wars. That it's a brand new era. It's set 400 years before The Phantom Menace. And so it's exploring a completely new, time period in Star Wars that we haven't really seen before. So it's very exciting. The writer is Charles Soule, and then it is narrated by Marc Thompson, who I have to go ahead and say this at the beginning. Marc Thompson is absolutely ridiculous. Probably my favorite narrator that I've heard. He's crazy. It's so good. And the range that he has is incredibly impressive. One, but then the fact that previously my previous book review was about the Thrawn series. He narrated those as well. And then he narrated this, and they sound so different. In the best way possible, but it's just so crazy that he's able to just, even in the narration itself, is not character voices specifically, but just the general descriptions of things, is able to make these two books feel and sound completely different, which is really cool, and it really adds to the fact that this is a brand new era of Star Wars. So I'll kind of break this video into two parts. I'll give a spoiler warning at one point, but I'm not going to get heavy into spoilers. I don't want to talk about anything too detailed or anything like that, but I am going to talk about some things and elements of the story that I wouldn't necessarily consider spoilers, but I'm going to get into more description than what I myself would like to hear about something, like if I was going to read or watch or whatever that media may be. So I will give a spoiler warning at a point, but before I get to that, I'll give my general thoughts, just for those who want, a completely spoiler-free review. I loved it. I thought it was great. Charles Soule is a wordsmith, and he crafts an extremely compelling narrative. He lays so much foundation and world building and does so many great things in a relatively short amount of time. This was a 14 or 15 hour audiobook, which I don't know how that exactly translates to page count, I'm not gonna lie, but it's a little bit longer than average / around average audiobook that I've found, at least. And so yeah, it was really good. I think that he has a very interesting and intriguing cast of characters. I think the Jedi in this period, the way that they're explored and the way they're talked about and shown is very, very cool. Of course, getting more into that later. The Nihil are super interesting. They're space Vikings, and a lot of the inspiration from them, you can definitely see where they got it from. I'll talk more about that, but they're really cool. They're such an interesting element to be added to this. The angle of hyperspace and what they talk about and get into with hyperspace in this is very, very cool. There's just a lot of things that are in this book that is part of what I talked about in my other video about how I love the intricacies of the way that the galaxy in Star Wars works, how it operates. And so you're getting all of that, but then you're also getting it in this very new time period and this very unexplored territory, because the galaxy is so vastly different from how it is in the movies and most of the media that we've seen, even, the now Legends material, and then also, of course, the Old Republic. That is a time period that it's very separated from the movies, but that's been explored some. This is a completely new thing, and it's just you feel that through and through, and just all the ideas and all the things, and even the little links that you can see to things that will have an impact later on and that we can recognize from modern Star Wars is really cool. There's just so many things this book does that it does really well there. As I was saying, the characters are very, very great. They're all strong. I love all the Jedi. Avar Kriss, Belzafar, I believe that's his name. Loading Greatstorm, they're the Panetta, Marchion Ro from the Nihil. There's a lot of great characters in here. I love them a lot. They all have very immediate personalities and voices and motivations and just depth to them as people, and so that really hits on all fronts. This book is also super emotional. I literally was tearing up multiple times listening to this at various points. I will say the body count, if you stop to think about it, in this book is kind of ridiculously high. It also has some kind of mature themes and scenes in it that I was like, whoa, okay, like I wasn't expecting that to be in this. Yeah, there's just a lot of really interesting things in this book and things that I liked, and I was cool to see Star Wars go in this direction. And it's just, yeah, it's a great book. I loved it a lot. Clearly, I don't know how much more I could talk about without getting like super into the details, but yeah, just overall really loved it. I definitely recommend it to anyone who's thinking about picking it up. I think it's definitely worth checking out and seeing and just getting this new perspective, this new, little slice of Star Wars that we haven't explored before. And so, yeah, I really loved it for that. With that, I guess I'll give my spoiler warning thing because I want to talk about some of the details with this stuff. So if you want to spare yourself any, really meaty details, then I guess now's your time to click off. Go read the book or listen to it. I definitely obviously recommend listening to it and then come back and, pick up from here. But anyways, getting into more of the stuff, like the way that the Jedi specifically operate is so interesting to me and so cool. I think a lot of their technology is super exciting too. Like the vectors, the way that they think about their ships, just their whole outlook on how they should operate is like peak Jedi. Like this is how the Jedi should be, and you can definitely feel it and see it. And like the vectors are a perfect example. Like it's very cool. They have these ships that are very much engineered to work with the Jedi only and operate as well as they do and how they do because the Jedi can use the Force and because the Jedi have lightsabers, because the weapon systems are literally have to be powered by the Jedi's lightsaber in order to work. And so one, it prevents enemies from being able to use them, and then also make sure that the decision to use your weapons is a calculated decision that you have thought out and have to put this effort into to use your saber to do it either via the Force or plugging it in yourself. And that's super interesting, and that's such a cool direction to take that and a cool approach to that. But then you have another step where the vectors are, most of their controls can be used via the Force. So you have a pilot who can be doing whatever and then also use the Force to operate the ship more, or theoretically you can use the Force to fly a ship from outside of it. And like the things that you can do with that, and the fact that that is in the book is so cool. And yeah, I love that. But then that's just like accentuated through and through. The way that the Jedi are talked about in this is they are held in such a high regard and a high standard. And I know that that's like sort of how they are in the prequels, but like you see them being that in this book. You see them being that example, that light, that beacon, like that. You see them do that constantly throughout this book, and the way that they all operate and carry themselves and through their actions. And then also their wardrobe, the fact that they're ceremonial, their formal attire is the white and gold, just very royal, sort of, not royalty, that's not even the right word, but just this, it's not even a sense of power either. It's just, it feels very right for the Jedi. The word escapes me of what it even should be, but it feels natural, and you see them being this, and you feel like this really is the peak of the Order. It is the high point for them, and like it's just very cool to see and how that's explored. All the Jedi and their relationships with each other are super interesting, because there is definitely a very different vibe and a different feel to the way that the Order is run and the Jedi kind of talk and carry themselves than what we see now. And I love seeing that. It's made me, I've always personally skewed more towards like my now favorite character is Ahsoka, who, obviously was a Jedi. But besides that, I skew heavily towards the bad guys in Star Wars. I mean, in most media generally, but especially in Star Wars, like my favorite characters have pretty much always been like the Sith or, whatever bad guy I may be. And I haven't been like the biggest fan of the Jedi Order. But this, I was absolutely loving every part of the Jedi throughout this entire thing. And that was really cool. And so, yeah, they're awesome. And then the Nihil, I got to talk about them for a second, which one, their inspirations, some of them are very, very obvious to me, at least, I think. Like the Nihil is very obviously coming from nihilism. And then just the way that they operate as we take whatever we want, we do whatever we want, we live just how we want. It's that hedonistic, nihilistic lifestyle. And so, the Nihil, it's very cool. They sound very intimidating. I mean, they are very intimidating in the book. They're fucking terrifying, actually. But so you have that, but then you also have, they're the Nihil, so they're space Vikings, right? So there's definitely obviously the inspiration from the Norsemen and Norse mythology there. And so you get these space Vikings, right, in Star Wars. And then you also have one character's father who was named Asgar. So Asgard, there's that. And what he was able to do and then is passed on to his son is they can use the paths to travel through hyperspace differently, which I have to talk about hyperspace in a second, but they can travel through hyperspace differently. And so they're granted an ability that he's literally called the Eye. That is what his name, his title in the Nihil is the Eye. He's the Eye that is granted access to a pathway that can put them basically anywhere in the galaxy. So he's Heimdall, and he has access to the Rainbow Bridge for him and his allies. But anyways, that's just a very, and then of course his father's Asgard. But yeah, no, it's a very, I think that is very, I love that. Like, I love being able to draw that line there. And like, yeah, it's obvious if you like look at it and see it, but like that doesn't make it bad. It works really well. And I mean, there's a reason that exists. That archetype is there, and it's done well here. And I think that, again, like the Jedi, all of the Nihil characters are very compelling in their own ways. They're very fleshed out in a prompt way. Like, prompt is probably not the right word there. A concise way would probably be better. They're fleshed out in a pretty, short amount of time. It's pretty condensed. Considering how many characters this book hops around with and you have chapters with, actually, it's very impressive how not gigantic it is. And I have to go back to hyperspace and talk about that because I love space generally and like how the universe and the galaxy operates. And so I love whenever Star Wars talks about it and it's getting into how things in the galaxy work, like supernovas and the way that the transportation in the galaxy and gravity wells and all of these different things, and hyperspace of course being a very big thing that's super prominent, and just like the characters treated as relatively casual in media. Like, they'll talk about the dangers of hyperspace travel, of course, whenever it comes up for whatever reason in the plot, but like it's also a very casual thing. Like, you just consistently see characters casually jump to like light speed and go through hyperspace to travel to wherever they need to go. It's a very, everyone in the galaxy uses it. And so I love hearing, though, and they do this a lot in the novels, and they of course do it a lot in this one because of this, the disaster. I didn't even talk about the disaster. I'll get back to that. But like the use of hyperspace in this, and how you have hyperspace lanes, and how the Nihil are able to travel independent of those hyperspace lanes, and then the way they even sort of get into what hyperspace is and how they think it's, from what they understand, because they don't even fully understand it, which is awesome. It's your own bubble plane of existence traveling through space-time, which is awesome. That's so great. And so I just love that exploration into it. And like, you get some more about like the pioneers of hyperspace travel and getting these hyperspace lanes and figuring these routes out. And I just like, I eat all of that up. I love stuff like that. It's also like whenever they talk about Bacta, like that was one of the things that I was thinking about earlier when I was mentioning, like, you see ties in this book to modern Star Wars, but like Bacta is one of them. Like, at this point in the galaxy's timeline, back to healing, back to medicine, back to tanks are not a thing, but they're mentioned being explored, and they literally talk about them like, oh, it's this new thing that's supposedly gonna revolutionize medicine if they can figure out how to mass produce it. Like, we know that obviously back to tanks and back to healing is a thing that is used frequently in the current modern Star Wars. And so that's just really cool. Like, that's one of those ties that I love to see. Speaking about the Great Disaster, that opening, the countdown to impact, the way that it's all handled with this huge, the galaxy is at peace. That's another thing. The state of I guess I'll lump these two into one category. It's the state of the galaxy and then also the Great Disaster. So we have the state of the galaxy, which is a time of peace and prosperity and like expansion. And it's just this renaissance of art and life and things being great, which is so cool to see in Star Wars. We normally, of course, always see a galaxy at war. And even though, so we get that, and Chancellor Soule is like very much working for that. The Jedi work in tandem with the Republic in the best way for both of them. You have this Starlight Beacon, which is this new thing that's being put on the outer rim to like help unify the galaxy even more, even though they're farther, of course, from the core. And so you have this state of the galaxy that's very unique to this time period. We don't really see the galaxy at peace and with this so much prosperity. And then even though you have that, of course, there are still threats to deal with the Nihil. And then you have this other thing, which is the Great Disaster, which is this huge tragedy and event that happens due to some crazy stuff in hyperspace. And the way that impacts the galaxy, how the Republic and the Jedi and every character that you see throughout the story react and interact with that is just very cool. And yeah, I almost started getting very into spoiler stuff and then had to like reel myself back in. There's some stuff I'm gonna have to cut and post. Thanks, editing Alex. But yeah, I think those are most of my general thoughts on this book, the more like detail oriented things. I don't want to make this video too long, but yeah, I think that's mostly everything. Of course, with the audio Star Wars book, production quality is just top tier. You get the sound effects, you get the score. I will say, I feel like they did a lot of new music for this for different points, which I thought was really cool. Obviously, this being a new, initiative and a very big push for Star Wars, you can definitely tell that they put a lot into the production of this. And so, yeah, that was really cool. Definitely recommend. Loved the audiobook. Loved the book. Charles Soule is amazing. Marc Thompson kills it, as I said at the beginning. Yeah, the High Republic is a super interesting area of Star Wars that I'm very excited to see explored more and even further with all the other stuff. I have a lot of content to catch up on, honestly, with the whole High Republic initiative, so I'm excited for that. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like down below. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out. Turn your notification bell on. I really, really appreciate it. And be sure to tune in to the next one. Later.